Perfect. Donna, I cannot thank you enough for being on this show with us. I know I'm going to be a little bit obnoxious. Maybe you'll even feel a bit awkward about what I'm going to say, but you know how much I love and respect you. And you are one of the, I mean, I've come across a lot of people in this industry, a lot of successful people. You are one of the, obviously, you're very successful, but you are one of the best people I've met. And you're still so humble about it. But beyond that, just as a human being, you've been so kind, so accommodating. You've always been so fair. The way you've treated me and anyone else I've seen in the industry, you could not be looked at with more respect. And I say that across the industry, anyone that I've met has always had that same sentiment towards you. Um, and what I find real interesting about you is that you are one of the people that I can genuinely call a pioneer. Because when I look at this industry, it's such a, it has been at these historically so male dominant, and you are such a trailblazer. The positions that you've held speak for themselves. But I realize what a fanboy I've been so far, but that's just because I really, really love you and I look up to you. But I gotta get you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came into this industry, whatever background you want to fill us in. Just love to hear a little bit about it.
Well, I am humbled by these wonderful comments, and I'm very grateful to have you as a friend.
Likewise, Donna. Thank you.
There are so many things that I think about when I look back on my career, and I'm going to try and focus on comments that are probably relevant to the age of the audience as I understand it. And I'm going to say I am more than twice the age between 19 and 20, 25 if we want to put it on the upside. So I've had a lot of experience. I've been in the investment business for over 38 years. I had very little knowledge of the business when I went in. I started working when I was 13 years old in a shoe store.
Wow.
And I worked my way through university, paid my way through university. It's always been a very independent type of approach I've taken to my life. When I graduated from university with a degree in family and community development, and the only reason I have that degree, it was a brand new degree, was I started out in elementary education, and I spent a semester in a classroom of second graders, and I realized that teaching was not really in my wheelhouse. So I, mid-term, my second year, changed all of my focus to finding a major that I could transfer most of my credits into and still graduate within 5 years. And it's by the seat of my pants, it was family and community development. I worked at the Girl Scout office for 2.5 years, working with young women in high school. And it was pretty interesting because we went from making the traditional nut cups for old folks' homes to looking at youth rights, looking at gender and sexual diversity, just to really start challenging these young women. So it was an interesting time, but I also was making $13,000 a year, and I realized if I never got married, that I'd better go into a career that had more economic potential. So somebody suggested that I be a stockbroker, and I thought that was a good idea. So I went and interviewed for a job, and if they would have asked me what a stock or a bond was, I wouldn't have been able to answer it because I had no clue. Right. And it happened to coincide with the time period when Merrill Lynch was getting sued because they didn't have gender diversity in their broker force. So I just told the gentleman I was interviewing with that I was going to be the best stockbroker in the Twin Cities. I was living in Minneapolis at that point. And if he didn't hire me, somebody else would. And
nice.
While I didn't know it, that was right in his scope of the kind of attitude that he was looking for somebody to go into the business. So I was hired, and I did that for 15 years, and I really enjoyed it. And I got married and moved to Canada, and at that point in time, I switched into the investment management industry. And it was really quite different to work in Canada versus the US, and the brokerage business versus the investment management business. The brokerage business was very eat what you kill and very competitive and very in the moment focused, whereas the investment management business is more building long-term relationships, understanding client needs, and being able to help clients not only manage their emotions, but their money through a variety of economic environments. So that really was the pinnacle of where I thought I wanted to be. And I have spent the last probably 30 years in this business. So it's been incredibly rewarding.
Well, and I can say from my perspective, coming into this industry, you've done an amazing job. Your career speaks for itself, but like I said, just the respect that you demand, your reputation is just outstanding, and it goes to show. Now, it's interesting, one of the things that you said, because what I know about you, I know what a generous, kind person you are, and I know how giving you are, and how many endeavors you have that are outside of just chasing money and making money. And that's what always drew me to you, and the respect that I have. Like I said, I've met a lot of people who've been successful in business, but there's always, I'm drawn to people like yourself who are such great people. But you said something that was interesting, because you said you changed your career because you wanted to make more money. And that's something that I want to highlight, because sometimes people have a hard time with that. They feel guilty if they want to just go for a job that makes them good money. And they think like it's in some ways it's evil or it's unethical. Whereas you and I both know you can do a great deal of good with money, and you can do a great deal of good outside of your business. But there's nothing wrong with going after a job that's going to economically provide you with a life and a living that you need to have or you want to have. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that, because I feel like a lot of people have a hard time accepting that within themselves, that they want to make a great deal of money. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you stay a great human being, it's all good. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Was there any kind of a pushback from any of your friends or family saying, oh my God, you're going to become a stockbroker, it's this crazy world, and there's always these perceptions of what it's like to be in our industry? Was there anything like that you had to deal with?
Well, now I'm going to really date myself. I grew up in an Italian Catholic family, and the expectation was that if I had a career, I would be a nurse or a teacher, so that if my husband was taken ill, I would be able to have an income to support the family. So I didn't come at it from, I think, some of the current day concerns. And when I look at the reason that initially I felt like I needed to make more money, was I had accepted that I might not get married, and that if I kind of looked at that old paradigm where I was going to have a husband to support me and it was just me to support me, $13,000 a year wasn't going to get me anywhere. So
Right.
I was looking at it more from a survival and being able to meet my own lifestyle choices.
Right.
Having said that,
Honesty.
Having said that, once I started making money, it wasn't about making money. Money was the measure of how good I was. It was the acknowledgement of being a top marathoner. It was the acknowledgement of being the best. So I've always been driven by achievement. And the
Right.
measure of achievement has been the money. It wasn't for the sake of money.
I totally get that. It's just a way of keeping score.
It's a score. It is. It is. Because
I
at the end
totally
of the
get that.
day, when you die, it doesn't matter how much money you made.
Right. I totally get that. Um, so when you got into this industry, it's another thing that stands out to me is how the timing was important, and that's such a big factor in life because you were in a lot of ways right attitude, right person for the right job at the right place, and then you interviewed with the right person. So I'd love to get your thoughts on where you had the confidence to say what you did, because even though you were in the right place at the right time, you said the right thing, which got you through the door. Love to get your thoughts on where that confidence came from, but also, I know you've hired a ton of people. So now what is it that you look for when you're hiring people, or anything that you specifically want to see or hear?
Um, well, once again, I'm going to go back in time. I was young and stupid, so it never even dawned on me that there was something I couldn't achieve. So when I said that, I was like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
I can do anything. And
Absolutely.
I still have that same confidence, but I have it
Hmm.
for different reasons now. And I think where I'm at in my life right now, I have that confidence because I've survived all of my worst days.
Right.
So when you look at it from that perspective, life always throws things at you. And there are great things, there are horrible things, there are things that you can't imagine doing for more than an hour, let alone 24 hours or 2 days or 2 weeks. I'm
Right.
here to tell you, you can get through anything.
So,
And in that perspective, for me, I want to work with people who are humble, people who are talented, people who are curious, people who will not be stopped by an obstacle, but will think through and find a different way to get whatever we need to get done. We have a very small team in Cardinal Capital Management in Toronto. We've all worked together for at least a decade. Different strengths, different weaknesses, but everybody is always focused on doing the next right thing.
Right.
building
Um,
off of, sorry if I could, building off what you were saying. So with the challenges and the difficulties, is there any notable difficulties or challenges you face that you feel comfortable sharing with us?
Being a female in the brokerage business when I first started was a challenge every day. When I went to work for the firm in Minneapolis, the female washrooms were the public washrooms on the second floor from the office. When I tried to work and learn from some of my colleagues, I found a lot of resistance. I found a lot of ridicule. I found a lot of challenges that I never expected to deal with. And once again, I was stupid enough not even to think they were going to restrict me in any way. So that would be early days. I think later on, what I found was really challenging was to be in environments where the competition were some of my female colleagues. The hurdles were some of the glass ceiling issues, and to be held to a double standard. So I'm really opinionated. I'm very blunt. These are my character flaws that I try to mitigate, but they're also my strengths, because it helps drive the change that needs to happen. There were times where the double standard of my bluntness versus a male colleague's bluntness, I was penalized for it and he was praised for it. So, you know, those kinds of things were pretty difficult for me. And I don't think I handled them particularly well in the early days. Now everything just rolls off my back. I'm going to get a t-shirt that says, go ahead, underestimate me. That'll be fun. And, and I would say that throughout my career, the one most memorable factor is everybody, particularly my male colleagues, always underestimated me.
Big mistake.
Being a woman in this industry, what advice do you have for young women that are in their 20s that are trying to get into this industry?
I would say that you have to work hard. You have to never sacrifice your integrity or your honesty. Always focus on the task at hand, but be mindful of where you want to go in your career. So those are some things that I think are really important for women, for anybody going into this industry today. It's very different than when I went in. I was part of the you know, that forefront of women that changed the rules. And those
100%.
rules are very different today. I don't think, and I've said this before, I don't think I would be able to have the job I have today if I were just coming out of school today with the kinds of credentials I had back then. A lot of this has just been sheer force of will and curiosity. So be curious, don't give up, all those types of platitudes that everybody tells you. But I think there's one thing that, if you want to talk about a regret, when my husband and I started a family, I was very much in that growth time in my career, and I spent a lot of time at work or traveling. And if I were making a suggestion or I would rewind the tape, I would do that differently. I wouldn't sacrifice my time, my personal time with my young children, the way that I felt I needed to do it then to achieve what I needed in my career. And what I know now is, if I would have taken some time off, I'm so driven, I'm so curious, I'm so good at what I want to do that I might have lost a little bit of time, but I would have made that up.
Do you think at the time you were worried that you weren't 100% sure if you'd be able to catch up if you took the time? Was that the concern?
I don't know if it was that obvious to me or I looked at it in those kinds of terms, but what was really obvious to me is that things were moving very quickly. The ground was shifting very quickly in the industry and I was working at Royal Bank at the time, and in the bank that I made that choice to not let that go, and kept, you know, that pace up and trying to keep the pace up at home, but it's impossible. You can't do both well.
You know, one of the things that constantly comes up is that from the outside, sometimes when, you know, we see people like yourself who're so well put together, so successful, so assured, confident, do such a great job every day, it's easy to assume that their life is just perfect and everything is just going according to plan. Whereas I know in reality, everyone has challenges, and this is something that comes up all the time, and that you still have to come into work and perform and do a great job even though you're dealing with all these challenges. And a lot of time from the outside, people look at you and they're like, oh, well, Donna, you know, surely her life must be perfect. Whereas you're facing so many challenges, just like anyone else, but you still come in and you still perform. And that's what makes you, such a professional and makes you so good at your job. But how do you think you're able to do that? Is there a way where you're able to separate the two, or maybe reconcile your challenges internally, so that you just come in, or any tips or any tricks that you use to be able to do such a great job while dealing with what every human being does on the outside?
Well, nobody's life is a Facebook post or account. So, I think everybody needs to acknowledge that. Early on, I was very good at compartmentalizing. So I would, keep everything in nice, neat little buckets. That doesn't work for very long.
Right.
And it's also not very authentic, because then you react to the world from those different buckets depending upon where you are. And if you do that, you only give whomever you're with access to part of you, as opposed to access to who you are in totality. So for me, I try to keep my focus on every day, not be imbalanced in what I am upset about, or what I'm conflicted about, or what I'm trying to resolve in one area. I don't necessarily live in those compartments, and I have a lot more patience with myself and a lot more belief that I'm not perfect, never been perfect if I'm honest, and that there are always times when you need to have the ability to trust some of the people in your life with the whole picture. And not everybody needs to know the whole picture, but there are people that care about you, love you, support you, understand you, know you. And those touchstones I've developed all the way from high school. And I have those connections, and they keep me grounded, and they help me integrate all aspects of my life so I don't compartmentalize. And what I find is the more I do that, the better I am at everything I do.
That was such a great articulation of that answer, and I love that, because you kind of ventured into another question that I always like to talk about, and that's the idea of about openly and honestly talking about your life to other people, and having at least some people that you can go to and discuss things with, so that and in just in that expression, I find there's relief. Just to be able to talk about things, there's relief in that. It also helps you put things in a more organized, to take all these scattered thoughts and put them in linear sentences so that they make even more sense to you, but then get feedback. And there's also such humility in that, because it's we all want to come off super strong, like we don't need anybody. But the reality is we all do need people. We need to talk to people. And there's humility in going to someone and saying, I know I'm the president of this company, or I'm so-and-so, but like you're saying, no one's perfect. I have a bad time right now, or having a hard time with something. And I appreciate you talking about that. So I'd love to get your thoughts on how important you think that is. And also, what do you think is critical to having some of the elements that are critical to having that kind of relationship with some people?
That's what life is. Life is relationships, and at the end of the day, it's really all that matters. And I think the biggest example of that is what we've all been through in the last 9 months with sheltering in place, social distancing, really limiting your access to the more frivolous parts of social life. And really, for me, it's been deepening relationships with, the people that are really, really important. It's interesting, and everybody has their own path for that. And my path has been It fits and starts over time. I remember I was going through a rough patch, and when I sat down and was honest with myself, I realized I had let a lot of my very important relationships kind of be on self-sufficiency as opposed to being actively engaged in them. And I called up 4 of my really close women friends and I said, I'd like to make a contract with you to talk every week. So
Nice.
we can catch up, and it's a commitment, and every Sunday we'll have a call. And that was a real awakening for me, because it showed me the importance of commitment. It showed me the importance of being engaged myself. And it also answered for me that I was important to these other people, because they quickly responded, great idea. And honestly, we still do that today. And
That's
I think
amazing.
that conversation took place 20 years ago.
Wow.
That's awesome. And going off of the getting help from others, in terms of mentorship, was there anybody that you looked up to? Was there anybody that helped you? And furthermore, are there any sayings or things, advice that you were given that helped you along your journey?
That's really packs in a lot, and I'll save the advice, the best advice I ever got, and I'll put that into context. I mean, everybody's a mentor. Somebody that you don't like, somebody that doesn't like you, teaches you about yourself. So I always try to, whomever I come into contact, whether it's a positive, negative, or neutral, if it's impactful, I need to learn something about it, because that kind of triggers that something's going on that I need to be aware of. I have been so blessed with people at different parts of my life appearing and being exactly what I needed at that time. And they might not still be in my life. They may have been there for just a certain circumstance. But over time, I've learned to recognize and be very grateful for those kinds of experiences. And they're all around if you just are open to it. In the context of the best advice that anybody ever gave me, my former boss, when I was at RT Investment Council, was a gentleman from Vancouver who had come here to run the newly formed business. His name was Fred Martin, and Fred was this very thoughtful, quiet person who always observed what was going on and could really zero in on an individual's characteristics. And at his retirement party, he said to me, I toasted him, and then he said to me, Donna, my only advice to you is don't piss off everybody at the same time. and that was a comment on my bluntness, my stubbornness, all of those qualities that help you accomplish things. And the only thing, and believe me, he grew tired of this, because when you work in a very political organization, it's very easy to piss off a lot of people at the same time. Somehow we always manage to get through it, but I now take that advice to heart. So that was probably the best advice that I've ever gotten in my career.
It's amazing.
That's actually really cool, but it's funny because people like yourself who are blunt and who are honest about things always seem to have a bit of a hard time working through the more bureaucratic environments, and they need to be in environments where they have a bit more control. And I think that's sort of an interesting point for some of the students or your younger people to consider. Depending on your personality, you should choose wisely what environment you're going to work in. Some people are suited for a large company like a bank. You go in, you follow the procedures, you deal with the politics. And some people are just not meant for that. And I think it could help you a lot if you recognize that and choose the right kind of environment for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
One of the things that you said, and I mean, I've loved everything you're saying. I really loved what you said about everyone being a mentor. I really take that to heart, because you could come across people that you have really no connection with, and it's a short interaction, but all of a sudden you learn something from them. So to have that open mind is critical. A lot of what you're saying, I really enjoy and I'm learning from. But one of the things that you said, I'm going to rewind a little bit, is when you were talking about first going into Merrill Lynch and getting the job, you said you didn't think there's any job that you couldn't do. And that is something that I want to highlight a little bit because, you know, when I can say it now as well, when we got into this industry, like, you know, we had the technical background, but we learned a lot of what we needed on the go here as we built the system and as we built our company, and we acquired the knowledge that we needed by either, you know, learning ourselves or bringing in the right people. But sometimes I feel that a lot of younger people hesitate into going into things because they want to be perfect before they get into something, and that's just such a wrong mindset. It's like, just go, just get started. No one's perfect, no one knows everything. Just get moving, take some steps, and just know that no one out there is so special that they can do something that you absolutely cannot. You can if you want to. Just go for it. And I love that you said that because I think it's so true. And I mean, with the exception of very few things, like if you want to become an astronaut and you're already my age, you're 39 years old, forget it. You're just not going to become an astronaut. That's just reality. Or I'm not going to become an Olympic athlete. That's just reality. But outside of that, you know, if you want to go for a certain career or you want to go for a certain education, just go for it. Like, don't think you need to be in this perfect situation or other people who are doing it are so special and you're just not that special. Just go for it. So love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, that reminded me of the second best piece of advice that I ever received. And it was from a very successful gentleman who ran a lot of businesses in Canada, and he was brilliant. And I remember him telling me early on in my career in Canada, he said, you always want to take a job where you're hanging on by your fingertips. You want to be so challenged that you have to scare yourself into climbing that wall to get to the next level. If you don't, you're going to get bored. Right. And I think that's been another back of the mind, ever present thought when I've looked at any challenge. Because I mean, I don't know how to do a lot of things. And if I did, then that's all I focused on. I'd be bored all the time. So right. I agree with you.
Donna, one of the things that I got to come back to, just because the name of this podcast is Life's Golden Nuggets. As you've obviously gone through all of these amazing, you know, parts of your journey, whether it be on the personal side, business side, all the different businesses you've been in, what are some of the golden nuggets you've collected, some of the words to live by, some of the wisdom that you think you want to impart?
For me, I don't know if I have any great revelations. I think what's most important to me, and I'm probably the most grateful for, is my family. I have a husband of 39 years, I think. I have 2 adult children. I have a grandson, and each of them is just, you know, this wonderful system of love and feedback and honesty that compels me to get out of bed every day and be the best person I can be. So for me, that's, I don't know if that's a golden nugget or the whole golden ring.
What's a big motivator to you? I mean, obviously family is a big motivator. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is. I would say another motivator is curiosity. You know? And particularly if somebody says, well, you just can't do that. And then I go, why? And you know, that's the toddler conversation. Why? So curiosity is, I just want to figure out how it can be better, how it can be different, how we can get it done in a more efficient manner.
So I know how to get you for a second podcast. I'm just going to say, I know you can't do it, Donna.
Yeah, that's right.
So just real quick, this deep in the business, would you say that it's important that even at the stage that you're in, to still find things that you're excited about, to still find things you're curious about? And if
Absolutely.
so, how do you even do that? Like, have you not experienced all there is to experience in your industry?
No. You never experience everything. There's one example in my personal life is we bought a cottage last year. I've never been a cottage person. I got a paddleboard. I've never done that. There are always things to do, and the more you talk to people, the more you stay engaged. That's why I love this business, working with the financial markets. I mean, every day is another insane day, and it always keeps me on my toes, and I'm always curious as to, well, why is Donald Trump still president? And is Joe Biden going to be successful? And why is the market up or why is the market down? And we've done the research on that stock and it has so much debt. Why is the stock price not reflecting it? I mean, there's stuff going on all the time.
Are there people still telling you can't do things?
My daughter tells me that all the time. My grandson tells me that all the time. Yeah. My husband, not so much anymore.
So I obviously get that curiosity is a big character trait that you focus on, and it's obviously central to your personality. I also know from experience how much integrity you have and how honest you are. But what kind of characteristics do you think are critical that you look for in people that you work with, or you think are important for people to sort of nurture in themselves?
That's really interesting. I haven't given that a lot of thought in how you express the question, but what I really think is important is that you have passion about what you're doing, and that you're able to handle criticism, not criticism for the sake of criticism, but just, we can't let this project fall behind, or what are we going to do to get this done? And take responsibility, accountability, and work towards what the greater good is for the team. That's what I look for in the environment we're in now.
I get that. Are there any specific habits and rituals that you stick to? I mean, I've known you for a long time. I know you're a healthy person. You're mindful of how you live your life. Are there, and I think that's important. I think it's important for you to take care of yourself so you can take care of the people around you, be the best version of yourself. Are there any, specific rituals, habits that you stick to, that you religiously follow or you advocate?
2 cups of coffee or first thing in the morning. That is like that, and it's usually Starbucks, one of the dark blends. That ritual doesn't ever leave my life. Other than that, yeah, working out, staying fit. The more your body is in tune, the better you will be able to handle whatever's thrown at you.
I get that. That makes sense. Donna, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. You know how much I respect you and I admire you. And, we took a lot of your time, but I think that was amazing. I think there's a ton of wisdom in everything that you shared, and you were kind enough to tell us. So I really appreciate your time. And now that I know how to get you for a second episode, I feel good, because I'm just going to let you know I don't think you can do it, and then you'll have to do it.
Well, I can never say no to you. So thank you very much. It was my pleasure, and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Donna. Thank you very much. You are the best. Thank you.
Take care. Yeah.
Man, that was great. I'm so glad she did that. I love this lady. She's so cool and she's so wise. And she's so modest about it, but she's legitimately a pioneer.
Yeah, that was an awesome interaction.
I think we both really enjoyed, because I saw your reaction too. We both really enjoyed what she said about being authentic and not creating these compartments and like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah,
going to be this with this person, that with that person.
very
I
cool.
think that speaks volumes about what an honest person she is and not putting on a facade.
Yeah.
And that's just
And I
really
think
nice to see.
it's a very unique take on the concept because I think a lot of people encourage compartmentalization, especially in business, like keep your work life and your personal life separate. But I think that she really nailed that, and she was like, "Listen, if you do that, and the people that you care about are not going to get the full you, you know." And I think that that was a very interesting
And
thing
I
to tap into.
wholeheartedly agree with that. I've always maintained this whole thing like business is business, personal is personal. I mean, you're at the center of everything that you do. Of course,
Exactly.
you have to
There's
be
going to be overlap.
authentic. You
Yeah.
can't just create these like false, personas. How's that deal? The other thing is you were saying this earlier, how her response about being blunt,
Yeah.
how you identified with
Yeah, I
that.
really identify with it because she summed it up perfectly. She said that it's a flaw that she's attempting to mitigate, but it's also her strength that gets what she needs to get done, you know? And I think that that really like highlights how much of a double-edged sword some personality traits can be, but how it's necessary, you know? And I think that that was really cool.
Well, most of these things are double-edged swords, right? Like, yeah, I mean, everything comes, every pro has its own con, but I love how Donna's able to just accept who she is and work on it so that, she's being honest, like, well, I don't want to piss everyone off at the same time kind of a
Yeah,
deal, but she's still being authentic to herself. So it's really
yeah.
nice to see.
And I think another cool thing was that the family thing she highlighted as a regret, the fact that like
Mhm.
if she could have gone back, she would have spent more time with her family.
Right,
I think that's interesting for people that are up and coming in this business to note that like somebody that's done it and has been successful still prioritizes family over the business.
right.
And I think that's like a very valuable lesson to take away from what you said.
100%. And I think again, I keep going back to this, but I think it takes humility to say that because everybody wants to just pretend like they're
Absolutely.
perfect and they did
Yeah,
everything perfect. But for her to come out and say, you know what, could have done that differently, that I think that takes a lot of humility and
for sure.
character to say that.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I think that was a
Well, it
great
was
episode.
great, man. It was great. I'm glad she was able to join us, and I
For
look
sure.
forward to more.
For sure, man. All
All
right,
right,
take care.
take care. See ya.